Hello, welcome to this channel. My name is Enoch. Today we will continue our series on AWS Cloudformation, and we'll be looking at template anatomy. We will look at parameters and pseudo parameters. We'll look at mapping, resources, output, and exercise. And we'll do an exercise on some of these things. Let's get right to it. What's template anatomy? Template is just a YAML or JSON document where you define, the resources that you want to create on AWS. And a CloudFormation template has some sections which include AWS template format version, which the default is 2010-09-09, which is optional. The description is also optional, which describe what your stack is doing. And you have the metadata, which is also optional, which is used for extra information in your stack. And you can use it for CloudFormation Designer or for parameter interface customization. We have parameters, which is also optional. It's a section to make template more flexible, reusable and capable of conditional logic. We have the rules, which is also optional, which can help you to enforce constraint on parameter combination. We have the transform, which is also optional, which allows the use of macros, or AWS SAM syntax, or to include internal snippet. We also have resources, which is the mandatory part of the template, and is used to define AWS services that you want to deploy. And every template must define at least one resource. We have the parameter, we have the mapping, we have conditions. We have output. Output is also optional, which is used to declare values to return upon stack creation. And so let's go and see them one after the other. Let's first look at parameter. Now, parameter allow user input during stack creation, via the console or the CLI or API. Parameter make your template dynamic. You can use a parameter to choose between, environment. Maybe you want to choose the dev environment, or you want to choose the prod or test environment. So parameters are used to pass dynamic values, into your template at runtime. It allows you to reuse your template for different environments, configuration or input values, without changing the template code itself. So you can reference parameters, in your template, but you cannot reference parameters in AWS template format version. You cannot reference it in description, mapping, and transforms. When are you supposed to use parameters? You use parameters for value that vary, per deployment, or are color specific, or that you want to expose to flexibility during the stack creation. It can be SSH key names, it can be your CIDR range, it can be subnet ID that you will use. This will give you an opportunity to choose these values during stack creation. And when not to use parameters, don't use parameters when the value is static, or when the values does not change across environment. Then you don't need to use parameter for that. And there are some parameter settings that we need to pay attention to. And these parameter settings can include type, which can be string, number, comma, delimited list. It can be list of numbers. It can be AWS specific parameters. Maybe can be a key name or subnet ID. It can be list of AWS specific parameters. It can be SSM parameter. And parameter, we have description. We have constraint description, which is a string of a string of letters that is displayed on the monitor when the constraint is violated. So parameter can also have min, max value, min, max length, allow pattern, can be regress, can also have allowed values. And they can have no echo, which is not going to allow whatever input you are inputting to display on the monitor. You can also have default. So that's parameter settings for you. And we have pseudo parameters. And pseudo parameters are built-in read-only parameters provided by AWS Cloudformation. And now they let you reference stack-specific values, like your current region or stack name, without defining them yourself. An example included AWS region, which is the region in which the stack is being created, and you can reference it just like this. So you also have account ID, which is the account ID of the stack owner. You can reference it just like this in your template. You also have the stack name, which is the name of the Cloudformation stack, and you can reference it like this. We have the stack ID and so many others. The stack ID is the unique ARN of the stack, and you can reference it like this. And we have so many other pseudo parameters. If you go to Google, you can search for it. If you go to Google, you can search for AWS Cloudformation pseudo parameters, and that's it. And you can click the first one there, and you will see a list of these pseudo parameters. You will see all these pseudo parameters. So you can see account ID, notification ARN, no value, partition, region, stack ID, stack name, so you can use all these without defining them in your template. If you want to know more about some of these things that we are discussing, you can check the documentation for more details. Let's continue from there. I don't want this video to be too long. And mapping are fixed variables in your template. Mappings are values that you don't want to subject to user input during stack creation. So they are fixed variables that within your Cloudformation template, and all the values are hard-coded within your template. They are useful between different environments. They are not going to change. So when do you use mapping? You use mapping for values that are static, that are static lookups across known dimensions. It can be region, it can be account, it can be environment, that you never want end users to be able to override, And you can access mapping using this finding map function, and it comes with map name, top level key, and second level key, and we will see that in our example. And we have intrinsic functions. Intrinsic functions, they are built-in functions provided by Cloudformation to transform and reference values, in your template. And commonly used functions include ref, which return the value of a parameter or the physical ID of the resource. You can reference a particular thing that you have, the particular parameter that you have defined like this, get attribute of a particular resource, and you can use it to get maybe the ARN of a particular resource. We have the sub function, which you can use to substitute variables in a string. You can use it like this. Bucket name, previous, account name, which this is a pseudo parameter. This is another pseudo parameter, so it will substitute them for their real value. So finding map, which is used to retrieve a value from a mapping. And finding map, you have the map name, top level key, second level key. That's the way map is used. So we have resources. Resources are the mandatory part of every template. They represent different AWS services that will be created. When you use a template, it can be server, it can be database, it can be your security group, it can be an API gateway. You can reference them in other resource that is being created. And most AWS services are supported in resources. And anyone that is not supported can be created using custom resources. There is something called custom resources, which anytime you have a resource that you want to create that is not yet supported, maybe a new features or something, you can just use custom resource to create them. So that's that. And we have the life cycle control policy in resource, which there are optional settings that you attach to resources to control what happens to them during stack update or deletion. Like whether a resource should be deleted, retained, or snapshotted, or updated in a specific way. And these policies include the depends on. The depends on is very useful to draw a dependency, between two resources. You can specify that the creation of a specific resource follows another, and whenever you use this in a resource, that resource is created only after the creation of the resource specified in the depend on attribute. So, and during deletion, the main resource is deleted first before the depend on attribute is deleted. So it applies automatically also when you're using a ref function and get at function. So another policy is the deletion policy. The deletion policy determines what happens when Cloudformation template is deleted, or when a resource is removed directly from a Cloudformation template, and it's used to protect resources from being deleted even if the Cloudformation stack is deleted. An example of that can be an RDS database, or maybe an S3 bucket. You don't want it to be deleted anytime you are deleting the stack, and you can go ahead and just apply this deletion policy and it will be protected. So the deletion policy can have the value of retain. You can retain it, you can decide to retain that resource, or you can snapshot the resource if the resource has an attribute of snapshot, or you can delete that resource, which is the default behavior. And for RDS DB cluster resource, the default policy is snapshot, and for RDS DB instance resources that does not specify the DB cluster identifier property, the default policy is snapshot. So we also have the update replace policy, which is just like the deletion policy. This is just used during update to protect a resource from being deleted when you are doing an update. There are some properties that once you change those properties, for example, if you change the name of an S3 bucket, you will see that this S3 bucket will be deleted and will be recreated. If you don't want it to be deleted during that update, then you use an update replace policy. So this policy can have a delete value, which is the default, and it can have a retain value, and it can have a snapshot value if that particular resource has that property. So that once a snapshot is done, that snapshot will not be managed by AWS Cloudformation. All right, update replace policy is basically used during an update when you are updating a stack, and the deletion policy is used when you are deleting a particular stack, to protect a resource from getting deleted. So to delete an S3 bucket, you first need to delete the content of the bucket, and usually to actually protect a resource from getting deleted in a stack, you need to use both the update replace policy and the deletion policy. Both are needed so that in case of an update it will be protected, in case of a deletion it will be protected. So don't forget that. Let's look at some of the entries that are available in a resource definition. First, you have the logical ID, which is the ID that you give, which is the like the name that you give to that resource. And you have the resource type, which is like the AWS is something like this, and you have properties where you will define the properties. Maybe you are creating an instance, then you will give maybe the instance type, the key pair, the subnet ID, the security group is inside properties, and you can now start giving the life cycle, policy that you want to use. You want to use the depend on, maybe you want to create a particular value, a particular resource before you create the main resource. So you state it in the depend on, and if you want to state a metadata, if you want to state a deletion policy, maybe it's retain or snapshot, or if you want to state an update replace policy, you can say, or you want to use a condition, you can use it. And output provide information about resource in your stack that you want to view on the console or you want to import into other stacks. So that's that. Let's go and do our exercise for today. And For the exercise, let me explain from the template first. Now, this is the template. So the first thing there is the template definition, template format, which is 2010-09-09. Then from there we move to the description, which describes what the template is doing. Then we move to the mapping. I'm defining the mapping first. You can define your parameter first. Of course, the parameter is the first thing that the system will even access, before going to the mapping. So mapping, this is a map name, the top level key, and these are the second level key. These are the second level keys. All right. So that's that. So if you want to get something like this SSH location, you will use this as your map name. You will use this as the second first level key, and you will use this as your second level key. So let's go down. Okay, so this is the parameter. I'm defining some parameter here. This is the key pair. I'm defining the key pair here, which we are going to choose inside the console when we are creating the stack. I'm also defining a parameter here, the VP. For the VPC, we are going to choose it during creation. Then we are also defining an AMI ID, which is going to be fetched through SSM to the system manager parameter, and where it's going to fetch the latest AMI ID for us. And I'm also parameterizing the environment type, which will allow us to choose whether we want to create this in the dev environment, test, or production environment. I made the default the dev environment. And there is a constraint description there, which is a string that will display if the constraint is violated. And I also have an app config parameter here, which I intentionally put it here so that you can see how to use an SSM parameter store, in your parameter. And this is going to fetch a particular parameter that I've defined in the parameter store, and this is the name that I used to define it, and we will see it later. I will go and I will explain it very soon. And I also define a subnet ID parameter, which will allow us to choose the subnet ID during the creation of the stack. I also created the bucket name previous, which I set the default at my hub bucket, but that's the default. But creation, you will see when we define the resource down there. I also have an EC2 instance profile parameter there, which is a role that is used. I created it to allow communication between the EC2 instance and the SSM parameter store. So and we also have resources that we are creating. The first one is the security group, and I gave it a logical ID, which is app security group. Then this is the type, and these are the properties. Then I'm referencing the VPC ID from the parameter I defined above, and this is the ingress rule, which is allowing port 22 inbound, port 22, from this CIDR. And the CIDR is going to be selected from the mapping that we've created up there. And this is the map name. We are referencing this first level key using the parameter that has been defined, which is the default is dev environment, and this is the second level key. So it's going to choose this is going to choose the CIDR range from there. So this is the EC2 instance that we are creating. This is the logical ID, and this is the resource type, and these are the properties. And the image ID has been defined, in the parameter above, and the image type. We are using mapping for it. This is the map name, the top level key. We are going to select reference. We are referencing it from the parameter that we define above. The instance type. Then the key name too. We are using the parameter defined above. We are referencing it. And the subnet ID, we are also referencing it, which is going to choose the first one. We have the security group, which we are referencing it from the one we created above. And the IAM row, we're also referencing it from the parameter that we define above. And the block, the EBS block. And then we are using a user data for the creation. During the creation of the EC2 instance, we are using this sub function here, which is going to substitute some values, and we are defining a bash script. This is the shebang line, and we are installing AWS CLI. I'm creating this file specifically so that the parameter query will not fail. It's going to query the parameter store. It's going to create the parameter store. I'm referencing the parameter. I'm referencing the name to the parameter that we define above, and it's going to query. The SSM parameter store to get the parameter value from the name that is going to get from the parameter defined above. Then is going to then get the output and send it to this file. This is a configuration file that our EC2 instance, our machine, is going to use. Let's go and see this particular parameter store that we defined above. Let's go to SSM. Let's go to the System Manager parameter store, and let's scroll down to parameter store, and this is the parameter store, and let's see the value. So I created it through the management console. You can also create it using your template, but this is the parameter, and let us see the value. So you can see this is the value. This is the value that will be sent to the configuration file, and this is defining the log level that should be used, which we are setting to info. The log level it has like 5 different options. It can be debug, it can be info, it can be fatal. So this the info is just okay. Since we are creating this in the development environment. If it's maybe the production environment, we will choose the debug, which will give us more details. But the info, at least this will help us to save some space, and reduce noise. And the API endpoint, this will direct your application HTTP request, appropriately. So that's it. It will guide your HTTP request, to this endpoint. So through this endpoint. So that's that. And let's go back to our template. And we're also creating an S3 bucket, and which we gave a logical ID, a type, and a bucket name. You can see we are using the sub function here. We are using the parameter, the bucket name previous that we define above. Then we are using the pseudo parameter. This account ID is a pseudo parameter, and this region is a pseudo parameter too that we are using here. All right, so and we are defining some output here, instance ID, which we are referencing the logical ID of the instance that we are creating. So bucket name, we are referencing the bucket name. We are using the bucket logical ID, and we are also getting the region. We are using the pseudo parameter to get the region. All right, so that's it. Let's go to the console and go and create this. So let's just go to Cloudformation. Let's go to Cloudformation and create this stack. Click create stack and choose with new resource, and let's leave it at choose an existing template, then upload a template file, then choose a file. Then I'll be choosing this parameter sample. Now I'm going to put the template on GitHub, and I'm going to put the link below. You can get it and you can try it out yourself. And let's scroll down and click next, and let's give a stack name. I'm going to be giving parameter sample stack, and let's now choose our parameters. The SSM parameter store that will define my app config is a configuration file that the EC2 instance will need, and the bucket name previous, this is it. Let's leave it like that. And the EC2 instance role, this is it. And the environment type, I can choose test, I can choose prod, but I will leave it at dev. And the The image ID will be it will get the SSM parameter, will fetch the latest AMI ID for us, and the key name, I'm going to choose a key pair that I've created in the system, and the subnet ID, we are going to choose it, and we are going to also choose the VPC ID. I just leave all of them there so that you can see how parameter works. It allows you to just choose your parameters, during creation of the stack like this. Those are parameters, that changes based on environment or based on configuration, and you click next, and you can do your stack options settings. I'm just going to click next, and you can review your settings. You can review your settings, the parameter that you've chosen. If it's not the one, you change, you go and edit it, and you see your options, and you can then submit to create your stack. So the stack will start creating right away. All right, the stack creation is completed. Let's look at the event. So if you look at it, the stack started creating from here. Then the security group was completed. The app bucket, the S3 bucket was completed, and the EC2 instance was created, and that's it. And you can see the resources that were created: this S3 bucket, the security group, the EC2 instance. Then you can check your output over here: the bucket name, the instance ID, the region output. You can check the parameters that you selected, and you can see them here. You can check your template from here. That's your template. So that's that. And if you want to check any of the resources, you can just click it from the resource. You want to check your instance, you can just click it and go and check the instance, and you will see that the instance is running. That's the instance for you. That's the instance. If you want to check the properties, you can check the properties. So that's that. You don't have to delete it. If you want to delete it, just simply go back to Cloudformation and go and delete it from Cloudformation, and it will delete everything for you. It will delete all the resources for you. All right, so and that's our exercise for today. And in summary, we have looked at a template anatomy. We have looked at parameters and pseudo parameters. We have looked at mapping resources and output. We have said our resources are the mandatory part of every template, and we have done an exercise today to see all these template content. So in subsequent videos, we'll be looking at conditions, rules, nested stacks, and stack set, and we'll look at some Cloudformation resources online that you can take advantage of when you are writing your template, your registry modules. And we will do an exercise or a project where we are going to use our Cloudformation stack, with a CI/CD pipeline, using the code pipeline, and I'm going to show you an open source project that you can just use to just improve your skill on Cloudformation. So that's that for today. Thank you for watching. I will see you in the next video.